Loneliness was one of the effects of Adam's fall. He was alone in the beginning, and God said it was not good for him to be alone, so he gave him as a precious gift an helpmeet, Eve. Adam never knew loneliness in his perfect estate, but he and his children have lived with this destroyer ever since the fall. Adam knew loneliness the day he hid from Eve. For doubting his acceptance as he was, he revealed only that part of himself he judged her willing to receive. Haunted by the realization that the image he projected was not true to the real man, the little man inside learned to live alone and lonely. Another once wrote, quote, "The whole conviction of my life now rests upon the belief that loneliness, far from being a rare and curious phenomenon, peculiar to myself and to a few other solitary men, is the central and inevitable fact of human existence." Unquote. Loneliness creates an unbearable stalemate in most of us. Desperate to be known, accepted, understood, and loved, we peer through the iron bars of our hiding place, daring at times to risk an exposure of our real selves, only to be greeted with hostility and rejection, and so we're driven deeper into ourselves. We're like a timid flower who longs to unfold its beauty to the world, but is beset by frost and insects, develops a blight, clasps its petals firmly to itself, and hides its face from all. Oh, how we search for someone who can be trusted with the revelation of ourselves without rejection, and listen with hope to the talk of love among mortals, only to find and experience that too often the only communication we are ever offered is mask to mask, not face to face. So, shut up within, we live our quietly desperate lives. Our only companions are our fears, guilt, sense of inadequacy, and loneliness. And many times we're driven so deep within ourselves that we lose all hope of reality and all sense of personal identity. We search for medical, psychiatric, and spiritual answers and help, clinging only to the hope of survival for life. We say with sorrow, "There's no one I can talk to, for no one understands me." Oh, timid soul, there is someone who knows you, understands you, and to whom you can tell all your heart, and still he will love you. Please listen now to the happy revelation of a God who loves you as you are and where you are, a God who will be your Savior and friend in Jesus Christ, his Son. You see, the way of self-acceptance is to find acceptance with God. We need desperately to see ourselves, our true selves, through his eyes, accepted and loved as we are, if we're ever going to be free. We will languish in our prisons forever if we wait for some human who will love us when we are unlovely, accept us when we are unacceptable, understand us when we are beyond human understanding. Only God in Jesus Christ can meet the needs of your heart. In his presence we can be what we are without fear. Take off our mask, be freed from the need of man's acceptance, learn the glory of being alone without being lonely, and blossom in the sunshine of his love. In him and his love we will discover our origin and destiny. Created to receive the revelation of his eternal love, we can find in him the principle of our existence and its only end. To know the true power of his love in Jesus is to see earth metamorphosed. To live in the assurance of his love is to experience no winter or night, a life where all tragedies, dreary duties, and fears vanish. And my immediate purpose is to assure you that there is someone who knows you as you are and where you are. Never mind for now about your sins and failures. Just listen as he seeks to bring you under the banner of his love at Calvary's cross, where his forgiveness and provision for you were revealed. Let him fold you in his eternal love and acceptance and set you free to walk with him in the cool of the day and precious and real fellowship. Listen in faith that God has found you. He's going to speak to your deepest heart needs. The need of love. Visiting a state penitentiary as a chaplain, I was interested in the only entrance and exit to that dismal place. As I was led through a series of 3 massive gates, the system was explained. All gates were controlled by electronic devices that only one could be opened at a time. The gates were in the control of master switches that were carefully guarded. And I thought of the little man inside of each of us who's in a similar place, shut in by 3 massive gates with their iron bars. We languish in our prison of loneliness. These gates have already been mentioned as fear, inferiority complex, and a dreary sense of guilt within. These are the inescapable traits Adam passed on to each of us. As with all men in prison, many and ingenious are the methods we devise to open these gates. Shut away from others and from God, we endeavor to come up with some master plan that will unlock all 3 at once and set our weary personalities at liberty to be ourselves. We imagine that assigning causes to our anxieties will better help us to cope with them. Hence we have accepted the imagined reality of many phobias peculiar to us and hope this will help to free us. We apply the balm of self-confidence to our inferiority complex, but in spite of all our bolstered attitude, we are often overcome by a sinking feeling of inadequacy, a sense of worthlessness that drives us further within ourselves. We establish rigid scruples by which we endeavor to regulate our behavior in the hope that our haunting sense of guilt will be relieved by intermittent periods of self-acceptance. Oh, if only every human being could see that these unrelenting gates that imprison us are controlled by one master switch, and that by finding of that key, all 3 can open at once and set the captive free. That master switch is love. Your need is simply to experience real love. The greatest happiness in life is the conviction that we are loved. Loved for ourselves, say rather, loved in spite of ourselves. Lovelessness is the basic cause of all human misery. To live without love is to find no purpose, reason, or plan for life, and our very existence becomes an empty, futile passage of time. The majority of our hospital beds are occupied by mental patients, those who are incapacitated because of crippling emotional and mental problems. Weary with trying to open the gates to freedom, they have given up in their prison and lost all contact with reality. The suicide rate in America is extremely high and is the 3rd highest killer among the young people of our land. Yet the answer to all their questions and solution to their problems in this life is to experience a real and lasting love. Most can relate to the sad words of Napoleon during the days of his exile. He said, "No one ever loved me, not even my mother." Facing the inescapable reality of what he was, and remembering the empty gestures others made and called them love, made him conclude that there was no such thing as real love. Though love has been the true subject of all poetry, music, and philosophy, and the true moving force back of all human history and literature, the experience of real, true, and lasting love has been as elusive as a shadow. Seldom do men grasp it so as to hold it. Love has been the object of all men's dreams, and without it life has no meaning. It has been defined 1,000 times and promised thousands more. It is the most sought-after experience in life. Men have lived for it, suffered for it, died for it, yet seldom experienced it so as to satisfy and fulfill the great capacity of their heart for love. Let us pursue this vast realm and see if by God's help we can discover a real and lasting love, a love that will open wide the gates that hold us and lead us into the liberty of life more abundant. We've searched for true love and been deceived, for we have searched among men, and men can only love themselves. Let us bring under the microscope the nature of love, and perhaps some of life's most frustrating questions may be answered. Love is not like. It has been said, there is only one kind of love, but there are 1,000 copies. It might be amended to read that there's but one real love, and as many copies as there are human beings in this world. The Bible simply declares God is love. Hence, there are as many concepts of love among men as there are concepts of God. There are 4 words in the Greek language for love. One of them has reference to the natural affection that's common to all life. Now, it's almost like gravitation or some other blind force of nature, and you may observe it in animals as well as in humans. Another word, eran, means only passion in its lowest form, seeking nothing but gratification. It's not even found in the New Testament. And among the pagan Greek writers, it was synonymous with sex love. The 2 remaining words for love are found to predominate the New Testament philosophy of love. One of them is the word phileo, in its various forms, and it appears around 45 times in all. Now let me define this word, for in spite of the varied manifestations of love among mortals, all of them are based on this one concept. Phileo is the kind of love common to friends. It means to be fond of, or to have a strong affection or personal attachment for another. It is an unimpassioned love that responds only to the pleasure it takes in a person or object. It's based on an inner community between the person loving and the person loved. Both, you see, have something in common. The one loving finds reflected in the person he loves his own nature. This love is one of liking, an affection that's the outgoing delight to that which affords him pleasure. It's a non-ethical, mutual attraction that carries no obligation and makes no ethical demands on the person loving as long as the person loved affords him pleasure. It demands no sacrifice from the one loving for the benefit of the one he loves. It's a reciprocal love, proper and legitimate. No standards of right or wrong are set by it as long as mutual pleasure exists. Hence it is a love that loves those who are like themselves, and is, in the final analysis, I believe, a love of self. In the New Testament it appears as the kind of love the world has for its own. For instance, the normal affection of a young woman for her husband and children, the normal affection of a child for his mother and father, the affection of a parent for his son or daughter. Judas expressed it for Jesus, but so did Peter. It's the common word to express the sentiments that exist between friends, and for our purpose here, I'm going to simply define it as a performance love. I call it performance love because it must ever be stimulated or die. It must ever seek to earn and merit the love it gets in return. The enjoyment and return of it depends wholly on the excellency of our ability to perform to the satisfaction of the one who loves us. I'm sure we've all experienced the heartbreak of this kind of love. We thought we'd found true love at last, only to learn that when the moon went down, the music stopped and the flowers withered, poetry lost its magic, and our eloquent words of love ran out. The love we were sure would outlast time dissipated like the morning fog in the searing heat of the sun. Phileo is the only kind of love any of us have ever known outside the love of God in Jesus Christ. It's the kind of love you first learned at your mother's knee.